Hello everyone, this is Stephanie. Welcome to another video. So today we're going to work on this bracelet, and this is called the Trine Bracelet. And this is using trillion cut stones and cushion cut. And you do have these in the Seaside Dreams collection if you still have some beads left that you want to use from that collection. But of course you don't need the collection to make it. We also have a pendant coming up and this chain, and that'll be another video. So today it's going to be the bracelet. This is what it looks like. So we're learning double CRAW here, and we're going to learn to bezel a trillion, and we'll do the cushion cut. So I'm just going to clear this off and get a materials list going, and we'll get started right away. Let's breeze through the materials. So 2 trillions, 12 millimeter, a 12 millimeter cushion cut, Delica, 15/0 seed bead, 11/0 seed bead, a few 3x2 millimeter rondelles. I've got a 2-strand box clasp, a stop bead. My favorite thing for doing cubic right angle weave is a bead reamer, and I'll link in the description box below where you can find these. Size 10 beading needle, have a 12 handy, 8-pound fire line. Did I say stop bead? I think so. So that's about it. Everything is listed in the description box below the video. Please click the down arrow, the show more. It will open and all info will be there. Anything I forgot is there as well, or anything I want to share. All right, so I'm going to clear this off and let's get started. So we're going to do this green stone. So you're going to thread your needle with about 3 feet of thread, put on a stop bead about in the middle. Now that might be a little long. You probably do 30 inches, but I always do extra. Okay, so we're going to pick up and drop down to a stop bead, 7 Delicas and 4 15/0s. I'm going to repeat that, 7 Delicas, 4 15/0s, 7 Delicas, and 4 15/0s. So you have 3 groups of 7 Delicas and 3 groups of the 15/0s. I'm using, of course, a color as my 15/0s just to give you a little different look, and I just think it will be easier for you to follow along. All right, so that's what I have. I'm just going to sew those into a circle by sewing through the first Delica after my stop bead, just like that. Okay, let's add some beads. So I'm going to pick up a Delica. I'm exiting this first Delica here. I'm going to skip the next one and sew through the following one. Like so. Make sure that guy pops up onto the previous Delica. I'm going to do that again, exiting here, picking up a Delica, skipping the next one, sewing through the following one, one more time, picking up a Delica, exiting here, skipping one, sewing through the next one. This is what I have so far. You don't want to pull it too tight so the beads are all buckling. Just a nice even tension. Okay, now I'm going to pick up a 15/0. So here's my 15/0, and I'm going to skip the next 15/0 and sew through the interior too. So here, I'll just get my needle through so you can see where I'm going. See, just like that. So I've skipped the 15/0. I've picked up a 15/0, and I'm sewing through the next 2 to place a bead right there. Then I'm going to pick up another 15/0. I'm going to skip the next 15/0 and sew through the Delica. Like that. So you see how that just places those 2 15/0s. I get either end of my group of 15/0s. Now I'm going to do that again. I'm going to pick up a Delica, exiting the Delica, skipping a Delica, sewing through the next Delica. Do that again, exiting here, skip this one, sew through the next one, picking up a Delica, exiting this Delica, skip the next one, sew through the next one, like that. And then we're going to do the same thing with the 15/0s. Pick up a 15/0, exiting this Delica. I'm going to skip the next 15/0 and sew through those 2 right in the center. Oops. Like that. It's going to place that 15-0 right on top of this one. Pick up a 15-0, skip the next 15-0, and sew through the next delica. So all you're doing is skipping, 2 here. So you're going through 2 of them. All right, so you're going to do that till you get to the end. So get to where the 15-0s are. So you can put your delicas on, and then we'll step up together. Okay, coming down to the 15-0s. So I'm going to pick up my 15-0, exiting this delica. So I'm going to skip this one, and I'm going to sew through these 2, like that, just like we've been doing. And then I'm going to take a 15-0, and we're going to step up here. So I'm exiting the 15-0. I'm going to skip this 15-0, sew through the delica and the next delica and the delica on the diagonal. Sorry about that. It's trash day. Okay, so get to that point and then we'll continue. Okay, let's move on. So we're going to add another round. So here I've stepped up and I'm exiting this delica. So I'm going to pick up a delica, sew through the next one. Again. Picking up a delica again, sewing through, so the 15-0. So we're sewing through all the sticking out beads. Now I'm going to pick up a 15-0, just one, and I'm going to sew through the next sticking out 15-0, which is way over here, like that. See how I'm putting my thumbnail in a little bit just to get it to curve a little. Okay, now I'm going to pick up a delica. I'm going to continue doing that around. So putting a delica through each sticking out delica until I get to the 15-0s. Like that. And then we're going to add a 15-0 from here, way over here, like that. And you're going to continue that all the way around, and then we'll step up. Okay, I'm coming down to the end, so I'm putting on my last 15-0 right here. And then we have to add one more delica and step up. So this is what it looks like on the side. So I'm picking up a delica. I'm going to sew through this delica, so that's the next one, and then the one on the diagonal. That's going to step me up so I can put some more beads on. Okay, we're back. So now we're going to add some 15-0s on. So here I've stepped up, and I put it on my finger because it's just easy to sew this one. Just give it a little pull. You want to pull too tight, but you've got this sort of, curve going here. So now we're just going to pick up 15-0s, and we're going to put a 15-0 in between each sticking out 15-0. So 15-0 through the delicas. Oops. And then 15-0 through this sticking out 15-0 right here, and then a 15-0 through the next sticking out bead. Just going to do this all the way around. Notice how it's kind of curving in as I do that. I'll just get you to the next turn. 15-0. 15-0. So now we're going to sew through this 15-0 right here, so putting a 15-0 there, and then another one through the delica. You're going to just do that all the way around, and then we'll step up. Okay, I've come down to the end, so I've got my 2 15-0s in the corner. I'm exiting this delica, and now I'm going to pick up a 15-0, I'm going to step up. So I'm going to sew through this delica, and then the 15-0 on the diagonal. And this is what we have. Okay, this is what we have so far. So we're still on this side. All I'm going to do here, I want to keep this thread because I'm going to put some beads around here in a little bit. But I want to move this thread just over one. So I'm exiting the 15-0. I'm just going to sew through this one. So the delicate, and I'm going to give it a pull. That's going to pull this is the back here. So that's just going to hold the back on while we play with the front. So then you can just turn it around. Take off your stop bead, thread your needle, you'll be exiting, actually I moved my thread, so let me pop out. Here we go. You'll be exiting this a delica right there, and you just want to move this thread to the outside bead, so you're just going to sew through this 15-0. So exiting this delica, sew through this 15-0. Just like that. Okay, so we're exiting that 15-0 right here. I'm going to pop my stone in. So you just want to make sure that the point is up at the top where those 15-0s are. And you're just going to give it a little, like, pull it around a little bit. It's not going to stay. You don't have to hold it a bit with your finger, but we'll do that. And this is what it looks like on the other side. It's not like completely straight yet, but as we sew around, everybody will be in nice and, it'll get nice and tidy. So there we go, stones in. Just going to add 15-0s all the way around. So picking up a 15-0, I'm exiting this 15-0 right here. I'm going to sew through the next one, which is right here. So I'm going to put a 15-0 right there. Do that all the way around. Just sew through a 15-0 through every sticking out bead. Just like I said, hold it with your finger, with your thumb and or finger. Mine's popping out already, but it'll tighten it as we go around. You don't have to pull super tight. Just keep your tension nice and even. So just sewing through each sticking out bead. And I can feel it starting to seat nicely right now. Okay, so just like that. So just do that all the way around and we'll step up. Okay, ready to step up. So I'm picking up my last 15-0, and the step up is going to be a corner step up. So exiting the delica, I'm going to sew through this 15-0 and then the 15-0 on the diagonal. So just like that. Give it a little pull. And at this point, you want to decide whether you want another round on. So sometimes it really depends on the stone. If it's a Swarovski, you might not need another round, or you might, if it's a, depending on if it's a Chinese stone or if it's a Czech stone, they're all different. So you just need to determine at this point, do I need another round of 15-0s? So I think I'm going to put another round of 15-0s on and then come back and we'll step up and then we'll work on the cushion cut. Okay, we're back. So I have my second round on. I'm almost done. I'm just going to step up, so it's going to be a little corner step up here again. So exiting this 15-0, I'm just going to sew through this one and the one on the diagonal. And I think that looks really pretty with 2 rounds, but I could have left it at 1. But I think it's really pretty either way. So what we're going to do, and so I've stepped up here. I'm just going to move this thread out of the way. So I'm just going on the diagonal through some of the beads, like that. Okay, so the front is done. I moved that thread, and now I'm on the back again. So remember, we moved the thread over after we finished that first round. That round of 15-0s, we moved over to that delica, so I'm exiting a delica. Now I'm going to put a 15-0 all the way around in between the delicas and the 15-0s, or all the way around this edge. So I'll show you how to do that. So you're exiting this delica right here. I'm just going to sew through the next delica in line. And then I'm going to sew through this 15-0. So I'm just staying in line all the way around, and so putting a bead in between the beads here. So here I've put one through that 15-0, then one through this delica, and then one through this delica. And I'm giving it a little pull. You want these nice and snug because we're going to actually use these beads later for a connection for the bracelet. You can. I think that there may be a couple of places to connect, but that's where I connected. So I'm going to make sure that these are on nice and tight. And what that's going to do also, it's going to keep it off your neck. So it's going to keep that back of that stone where the point is from laying on your skin. So instead of doing a whole big, you know, a lot of beading on the back, which I prefer not to. I just like to put something around the edge so it holds it upright. I've been doing that a lot lately, and it's been very helpful. So here, I'll just get you around the corner again because that's like the hardest part. So coming out of the delicate, I'm just going to sew through that 15-0. And then through the delicate, and so on. I'm going to do that all the way around till I come to the end. And then you want to make sure you sew this thread in really well in your delicas because you want these nice and snug. You want everything nice and tight because I said we might, you know, I think we're going to be using these as a connection point. We might be anyway. So, and you want everything tight anyway. So get that done, sew everything in. You know how you reverse direction on your delicas and everything to sew your thread and clip it off and then come back. Okay, let's start the cushion cut. So you're going to thread your needle with about 3 feet of thread, put on a stop bead, and about in the middle. So I'm going to pick up and drop down to my stop bead, 32 of my delicas. I'm going to sew those into a circle by sewing through the first delica after my stop bead. Now we're just going to do our peyote. So we're going to pick up a delica, exiting here, skip the next one, sew through the following one. Pick up a delica, exiting this one, skip the next one, sew through the following one. Make sure that pops up over the previous one. There you go. And we're just going to continue this all the way around. We get to the end, we're going to step up. It's time to step up. So I'm exiting this delica. I'm going to sew through this delica and then the one on the diagonal. That's going to step me up so I can put more beads on. Make sure those are all even. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to add 15 O's. Now just a note, depending on your stone, because some, wherever you get it, some of them are thicker and you might need another round of delicas. So you might have to play with that. I'm going to leave it at this and I'm going to put on my 15 O's. So let me grab those. And we'll put some 15 O's on. So I'm just going to pick up a 15-0 and I'm going to sew through every sticking out delica. I know it's maddening that there are so many different brands of stones, and you know, while the fronts look very similar, like I mean almost identical, how thick it is and how the back is shaped makes all the difference on how the beads fit around. I mean, in one way, it's kind of fun because, you know, it's different each time, but in other ways, it's a little frustrating. All right, so keep going around, and then you're going to step up and put another round of 15 O's on, and then meet me back here, and we'll continue. Okay, I've got both my rounds of 15 O's on, and I've stepped up, and like before, I'm just going to leave this thread. I'm going to take my stop bead off and thread my other needle. So this is going to be the front of my bezel. So I'm exiting delica here. Just going to get to the outside by sewing through this one. So then I can put more beads on. I'm going to put my stone in. So the way I want you to put the stone in, because this is sort of like a round bezel, isn't it? It's the stone that's giving it the cushion shape, because I didn't make it a square because I wanted it to have soft edges and just have that nice little cushion look. But for later, for attaching things and making it easier, when you put your stone in, I want you to see what it looks like, where the beads are when you kind of cut your stone in half with your needle. And I want this indented bead to be in the middle. So here you see these two beads sticking out. This is an indented bead. So when I hold my needle, that bead's going to be right in the center. And that's just going to help me place my beads on for attaching the stones. So just hold it there. Make sure it's staying, you know, you've got this indented bead in the center, and then you're going to add your 15 O's. So I'm just going to put on 2 rounds of 15 O's, holding it so that, you know, it doesn't pull the bezel. And if it does, you can always play with it a little bit. And also, it's loose right now. It's going to take a little time for this to, it'll take the 2 rounds for this to tighten up. So I'm just going to go all the way around, like that, until I have my round finished. I'm going to step up, and then I'm going to put another round on. And all the while, I'm going to be kind of, you know, aware of where that stone is sitting, so that my little indented bead is right down the center. Okay, so get those 2 rounds done and meet me back here and we'll continue. Okay, I'm putting on my last 15-0, and I'm going to step up here. So I'm exiting this 15-0, I'm going to sew through this 15-0, and then the one on the diagonal, like that. And I just want you to see where my indented bead is. So if you notice, come on, you clear up. Okay. This is the bead back here, right? It's indented, so it has a 15-0 in front of it. This is the bead that we're going to use to put our two attachment beads on, so we can attach the stones. So we'll be putting 1 bead here and 1 bead here. That's why I want this one in the center. So just make sure that this is what it looks like. You have your, this bead's in the center, you've got a little 15-0 in front of it, and that kind of cuts the stone in half, and that way we'll be able to make sure everything is done, you know, everything connects, and it connects evenly. So see that? All right, so just get to this point, and what you can do at this point is you can actually, you've just stepped up after you put your second round on, you can actually sew that thread in, and then we'll add the connection beads on separately. Let's get the connection beads on. So thread about 1.5 feet of thread on your needle. Find your center bead again. So here's where the bead that I want to use as my sort of center point. I'm going to actually, so here it is. I'm actually going to sew through the one previous. So this one, I'm going to go back to this one. You want to leave a nice tail to sew in because you want to tighten this really well. I'm going to pick up, I'll use a contrasting color. I'm just going to pick up a bead and sew through that all important center bead. I'm going to pick up another bead and go through the next bead, and then there you've placed 2 beads on, and they should be pretty well once you have them straightened out and, you know, tightened pretty much in the center here on one side. You want to take the tail thread and sew that guy in really well, reverse direction, go around, reverse direction, and then we're going to use this other thread to do our connection. So leave the working thread, sew your tail in, and then come back and we'll connect 2 of the units together. So we're going to attach the trillion to the cushion cut. So I've put on those 2 beads. I'm going to leave them in the contrasting color so it's easy for you to see what I'm doing. So here's my last bead I put on. I'm exiting Delica right here. All I want to do here is turn my thread around because I want to come out of this bead. So exiting this Delica, I'm going to sew through this one on the diagonal. I'm going to reverse direction, sew through that guy. Back up this one. And out right through that, the bead I added, so that 11-0 that I added, excuse me, that I added on. Let's attach the trillion to the cushion cut. So I'm exiting here, and all you want to do is find a center bead on one side. So here if I put my let me just move this for a second so it doesn't try to focus on that. So I put my needle here, and then see these 2 beads of the center, or the sort of the center Delica's cuts it in half. I'm going to use the back bead, this one. So what I did on the original is I just did this, and then I came through the other 11-0, but I think I'm going to add a 15-0 first, and then go through this bead. I think that's going to give it a little more strength. And then I'm going to add another 15-0, and I'm going to go through this guy. See that? And when I pull, that's what it looks like. So you can do it either way. I just think this is probably going to be a little bit stronger. And then you're just going to do the same thing we've always done. You're going to start sewing through your beads. You know, I'll let you do that on your own. You can come around, go through again, then sew all your threads in, and then you'll have and do the other side, of course, and then you'll have your whole unit done, and then we'll work on that really fun CRAW. Okay, before we go on, I just want you to embellish the back of that cushion cut like we did with the trillion. So the way you're gonna connect here is you're gonna come out of the second 15-0 round from the last one here on the back, and then you're just gonna take a 15-0 and go through each bead just to add the 15-0s all the way around on the back. So again, it will stay off your skin, and it will, it'll be just like the trillions. All right, so get that done and come back and we'll start the CRAW. Okay, this is what we're going for. So we're gonna make this band, and it is a cubic right angle weave, but we've got 2 rows of it, and we're connecting them so they'll be sharing beads. So it's not like you're taking 2 separate pieces and connecting them together. That would be much wider. So this makes this really beautiful piece like this, and you can, keep adding on if you like. But this makes a nice substantial band, and it's not, it's flexible enough. So we're going to create the 2 rows as we go. We're not going to do one whole row and then connect a second, and then add the second whole row on. We're going to do them together, so you can make this any length you like. You can change it up anytime you want. So, you don't have to have a specific length and then do the second row. And then maybe if it's too long or too short, you'll have, it's a pain to add more on. This way you're just doing both rows all the way down. And I'll show you as we go along. Okay, so let's get started. So thread your needle. If you'll need, you're probably going to add thread here, so thread your needle whatever's comfortable. 3, 4, 5 feet. Put on a stop bead. Leave it, about an 8-inch tail or so. You can always use that for your clasp, or you can put your own clasp on, and then we'll get started. Okay, let's have some fun. So I'm going to use 8-0 seed beads and 2 different colors, so you can get a little better idea of where everything's going, and we'll do it pretty slowly. So I'm going to pick up 4 of my beads. You'll be picking up 11-0s, of course, or if you're just practicing, use 8-0s and play a little bit. So I'm going to drop those down to my stop bead, and I'm just going to sew them into a circle like that. And then I'm going to go around and reinforce my circle. I'm going to come past the stop bead. So I'll be exiting a side bead just like that. Okay, this is where we are. So now I'm going to take my bead reamer, and this is a game changer for me just because I have trouble holding this. So I'm just going to pop it in like that. So it looks like. And then all I'm going to do is just sort of turn it sideways like this. So you see I have my thread coming out of the top of that side bead, just holding my reamer like this, leaning it against my finger. I'm going to pick up 3 of my beads. Exiting here, I'm going to sew through the other side of the bead I'm exiting, and that's going to put a unit on. I'm just going to turn my piece this way. So see what I did? Whoop, like that, and just advance through the next bead. So when I hold that up, I have a little corner. I'm going to pick up 2 beads. I'm going to sew through this one and this one. So 1, 2. Like that. And have another face on. I'm just going to rotate my piece again. Just rotating my hand. And then I'm going to sew through the next bead. So directly up through the next bead. Pick up 2. Sew through this one and this one. So 1, 2. Like that. Got another face on. Just going to rotate everybody around one more time. Just like that. And it, you know, might loosen up a little bit, but this is what you should have. You'll have 1, 2, 3 beads. So I'm going to just sew up through that next bead. I'm going to sew across the top bead. Like that. I'm going to pick up a bead. I'm going to sew the bottom bead and then this side bead again. Like that. And now I have my last unit on. And now I'm done, except these 4 beads right here have to be sewn together. So here I'm exiting right here. I'm going to sew through this guy. And then I'm just going to move my hand around and sew through these 4 beads here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you want to do one more to get through the 4th bead. Just sew around through this one. So we have a thread going through every bead around here, like that. And you are exactly right back where you started from when we started our unit. So there's our little unit. And I just leave it on here. Don't take it off. I leave it on and then I move it as we go along. So this is where you should be. So play with that a little bit of practice and see how it goes. And then come back and we'll add a unit on. Okay, let's add on another unit. So pick up 3. Exiting here. So through the other side of the bead I'm exiting. That. Rotate your piece. Like that, and sew up through the next bead. That's what I have. Pick up 2. You sew through this one and this one. So 1, 2. Another unit on. I'm going to rotate my piece and sew through the next bead. Pick up 2. And sew through this one and this one. So 2. Have another unit on. Rotating my piece. Now I have these 3 beads. I have to add 1, so I'm going to sew right up through the next bead. Across the top. Picking up a bead. I'm going to sew through this one and this one. So 1, 2. That. Then across the top. It's just like we did before. And then I want to sew those end beads together. So exiting here. Just going to sew through these 2. This one. Through the next one. See, I don't have a thread there, so I have to sew through this one as well. And that just puts me right back where I started from again. So this is your, your just standard cubic right angle weave, one after the other. But when we come back, we're going to go back in this direction so that we're going to grow this way. All right, so have fun. See you in a minute. Okay, we're back. So let's continue. So now I want this to grow in this direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it off my bead reamer, and I'm just going to put my bead reamer right here. Now, if this doesn't work for you, do whatever works for you as far as CRAW, because everybody has their own way of doing things. And then I'm exiting right here. My thread is coming out right here. I'm going to sew with nothing on my needle, just moving my thread right there. So I'm going to be coming out of this side bead here. Okay, let's add some beads. So I'm going to pick up 3. I'm going to use another different color just so I think it might be easy for you to follow. So exiting here, picking up 3, I'm going to sew through the other side of the bead I'm exiting. Like that. Okay, so now you just want to rotate your piece, and you have to look in there. So you're exiting this interior bead. You just want to go up 1, right? So if this unit was, if this was out of the way, I would just be going up this bead right here. So that's all you want to do is go up through this bead. We're just attaching it, so there's something in our way, but we're just going to go around it. I'm going to pick up 2, and you see now the next unit is going to attach to this one, and then the one we're exiting right there. So I'm picking up 2, I'm going to sew through this one, and then the one I'm exiting. Like that, and you see that's another face on. Now I'm just going to rotate my piece. That's what's so great about this bead reamer. And then you just want to go up the next bead. So here I'm exiting here, just going to sew up through this bead. I'm going to pick up 2 beads, and now I want to connect to these 2. So 1, 2, so I'm just going to sew through this one and the one I'm exiting. Another face on, going to rotate and sew through the bead, the following bead, the next bead in line, and then I have these 3, 1, 2, 3, just like before. I'm going to sew through the top bead, picking up 1 bead. I'm going to sew through this one and this one. So 1, 2, just like what we've been doing, only we're just attaching it like that. And then I want to go through the top, like that. And then we want to sew these guys together. Let me see if I can clear up a little bit here. Back off a touch. Come on. We're getting there. Ah, there we go. So here, I just want to sew through all 4 of these beads. There we go. Going around. Now I'm just going to rotate it back to this front so I can get my last thread through. I'm going to sew through this one. And now I have another unit on. See that? And then we're going to add 1 here, but I'll just let you get to this point, and then we'll continue. Okay, we're back, so let's add on another unit. So here I'm exiting right here. So I want to add here, so I'll be using, parts of these 2 units here. So what I want to do is sew through, just without any beads on my needle, I'm going to sew through this bead. And then this bead. And I'm going to pick up 2, and I'm going to sew back through this one and this one. So through here, and then through here. So see that puts another face on that unit. I'm going to rotate my piece and then go up the next bead. Just like that. Pick up 2 beads, and I want to sew through this one and this one. So I'm going to sew through here. 1, 2, like that. Now I have another face on. I'm going to rotate my piece and sew up through the next bead, just like we've been doing, only we're just sharing some beads here. Okay, so now I have my 3 beads. 1, 2, 3. I want to sew through the top one, like that. I'm going to pick up a bead. I'm going to add it right here because here are my 3. So I'm going to sew through this one, and then through the top of this one. Okay, now that we've gotten that last face on, we just have to put a thread through all these beads here. So I'm just going to sew through this one, this guy, then I want to sew through this one. Okay, so see how I'm back where I started from? I could add more units on. I'm going to put one here and here and here and here. Now, the only thing we don't have is a thread going through this one, so that we're missing a thread right here. So the way we're going to work with that is we're just going to add that thread when we put the next unit on. So we're going to pick up 3. So should I change color again? Let me grab my, oh, here we go. Okay. So we're going to pick up 3. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to sew through the other side of the bead. We're exiting like that. And then, like we've done before, you want to sew up through the next bead. So remember that one's in there. So it's right here. And when we do that, we're closing off that previous unit, which I think is fine. Pick up 2. Exiting here, you want to sew through this one and this one. 1, 2. So we're just repeating what we did before. So I have another unit on. I'm going to rotate my piece. I'm going to sew through the next bead. Like that. I'm going to pick up 2. I want to sew through this one and this one. So exiting here, I'm going to sew through this one and this one. Like that. Have another face on. Rotate up the next bead, across this one, add 1 bead for right here. So I'm going to go through this bead and this bead. 1, 2, across the top, and you want to sew those beads in the end, sew these together. So these 2, these 2. And I'm just going to turn this way to get through my last one. And now I'm ready to put some more beads on. So do you see how we're just doing the same thing we just did? We're just going to keep adding units on. So I'll let you get this part done again, and then we'll put one more unit on, and then we'll continue. Okay, let's add another unit on. So exiting here, so I want to sew through this one, and then this one. I'm going to pick up 2 beads, and I want to complete this unit, so I'm going to sew through this one and this one. So 1, 2. Rotate, sew through the next bead. So now I have these 2. I'm going to pick up 2. I'm going to sew through this one and this one. So 1, 2. Rotate, sew through the next bead. Now we just have the 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm exiting here. I'm going to sew through this one. I'm going to pick up a bead. I'm going to sew through this one. And then through this one. that, back through the top, and then you want to sew these beads together. So coming out here, just want to go through all of these beads on get a thread through them. Okay, so here I am back where I started from, so I can add more beads on. And again, I don't have a thread through here, so I'm going to add it on my next row, my next unit. But I was thinking too, if you want, you can just go through this twice, and you know, that way, that's fine. And now you have all. So that might even be easier to just go around again. Make sure you're coming out here. And then you're just going to keep adding units on like this. We're back. So here's my piece. And we pull out a little bit. So you'll be exiting like where you would be exiting when you're starting to add more units on. So this side bead right here. Okay, so if you're not exiting there, you need to move your thread. So I'm just going to find 2 beads on my trillion, which are going to be these two 15-ohs right here. So I've just kind of, you see how we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 in the center. I've just gone through the 2 just to, you know, keep it even like that. Now, if your trillion is different and your beading is different, you're going to have to find 2 center beads. I'm sure you'll be able to find something there. But if you did it the way I did it, then these 2 beads will be where you will connect. So all I'm going to do is just come through like that. So here, I'll leave it open. And then I'm going to sew through this bead right here. So I'm connecting it in between those 2 11-ohs. Okay, so that's what it looks like. Pull. Now I'm going to work my way around a little bit. So I'm just going to sew through this side bead. So here I'm exiting. Here, I'm just going to sew through this one like that, and then through this one. So that's that same one on the back right here. And then I'm going to find 2 beads on the back. So these 2 gold beads right here will be the perfect 2 beads to go through. And those are part of the embellishment beads. So through those 2, and then back through, or then through the next 11-oh on the band. Fix that a little bit. And pull. And you see how that pulls it together? Just like that. And that's going to attach. Then you're going to sew through this guy. And you can reinforce that entire thing that you did. So go all the way around again, just like you did, till you're coming out of here again. And then you want to sew this really nicely. So let's say you've done your reinforcing. So I'm going to now just sew this thread in. So I'm just going to go through several beads down the band like that, and I'm going to, you know, and you can even tie a knot in here, you know, do a half-hitch knot and then go through a few more beads, and now you're attached. So you're just going to do that on both sides and then come back and we'll put on the clasp. Let's add the clasp. So I've threaded my needle with about 1.5 feet of thread, put on a stop bead, and I've left enough of a tail to sew in. So I've just come through this side bead here. So here's the top. I'm going to come through this side bead here, like that. I'm going to pick up an 11-oh, and I'm going to use a contrasting color because it's going to be hard for you to see the gold. So here, I'm putting an 11-oh and going through the ring. I'm going to pick up a 15-oh, a rondelle and a 15-oh. I'm going to go through the other ring, like that. And then I'm going to pick up another 11-oh, and I'm going to go through this bead on this side, so that side bead. And that's going to start my clasp like that. Okay, now I'm going to move my piece around to the back. So this is where I have, I'm exiting this side bead. I'm going to pick up an 11-0. I'm going to go through the ring. So I'm just duplicating what I did on the front on the back. Like that. I'm going to pick up a 15-0, a rondelle and a 15-0. I'm going to go through the other loop of the clasp, like that. And then I'm going to pick up an 11-0 and go through this, oops, through this bead on the side again. So now I've just duplicated on the back what I did on the front. Round again to the front. And I want to attach the face of the beads here. So I'm exiting this gold bead here. I'm going to sew up through the 11-0 that we had put on, the ring, the 15-0, the rondelle, the 15-0, and the ring. So I'm just sort of going through my beads again, back through this 11-0, and then I'm going to sew through this 11-0 here on the bracelet. See that? I'm going to pick up a 15-0. I'm going to pop a 15-0 in between these two 11-0s. Now yours will all be the same color, like that. And then I'm just going to go through my beads again on this side. Here we go. Then through these three, like that. And that really tightens it up on the front. Okay, so just like that. I'm just going to leave that thread for a second, turn it over, and use your tail thread to do the same thing on this side. So you're going to go through all the beads, add a 15-0 here, go through again, and then you're just going to take both of your threads and sew them in really tight. So you know how to do that. Just go through the beads on your bracelet, tying some half hitch knots as you need to go, and then both your sides of your clasp will be done. It'll look kind of like that. Okay, we're back and we're done, and here's our partially finished bracelet. I just love the beautiful green. Here's the beautiful blue. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned a lot from this, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.